Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into a homeopathic remedy profile that reads almost like a tragic character study of ultimate total human burnout. We are exploring Zincum Metallicum. If you've ever felt so mentally drained that your nervous system feels like it's literally short-circuiting, well, the details in this profile are going to feel incredibly and maybe even uncomfortably relatable to you. Let's get right into it. Let's start with the absolute core thesis of everything we're exploring today. What iron is to blood, zinc is to nerves. It's a pretty powerful metaphor, right? We all know that a lack of iron leaves the blood weak, anemic, and just completely incapable of carrying oxygen and energy around the body. Well, according to the source material, zinc acts as the fundamental currency of our electrical wiring, our nervous system. Without it, the nerves just lose their conductivity, their power, and their resilience. Pretty much everything we look at today stems from this one profound loss of nerve vitality.
Moving into part 1, the ultimate exhausted student.
To really grasp this, the text gives us a brilliant narrative hook. It introduces the persona of a highly intelligent but ultimately totally burnt out student. You know the type, right? We're talking years of pushing way past the limit, studying day and night. But eventually they sit down with a textbook and the brain's machinery just stops. They lose all strength to think, to remember, to understand, or even focus. The classical texts call this severe brain fag and nerve fag. Their vital energy is just completely depleted. And it's really important to note, it's not just a lack of motivation. It is a structural inability to perform cognitive tasks. Their mental battery isn't just sitting at 1%. It's completely dead and refusing to hold a charge. Honestly, in today's hustle culture, looking at this level of total structural fatigue is absolutely fascinating. So, that takes us to part 2, restless feet and more nerves. Here is where the story gets kind of strange, moving from the mental right into the physical realm. When mental exhaustion hits this critical of a low, the body actually begins to misfire. Now, you would think someone this incredibly tired would just lie perfectly still, but no, wrong. The Zincum profile is defined by an unceasing, jittery physical restlessness, especially down in the lower extremities. The student's feet simply will not stop moving. They twitch, they kick, they shake continuously. It's so bad that roommates are actually kept awake by the constant shuffling, and it's completely involuntary. If they try to force their legs to stay still, this unbearable restlessness just seizes them. We see sudden muscle jerks, hands trembling while just trying to hold a pen, and sometimes the entire body literally shudders from the sheer weight of this nervous exhaustion. It's basically a body so tired, it's completely forgotten how to rest.
All right, part 3, strange cravings and aversions.
Looking at this daily timeline, we see a really extreme contrast. We already know the nights are totally ruined by those restless feet, but look at the middle of the day. Exactly between 11 a.m. and 12 p.m., a ravenous, almost starvation-like hunger strikes. The student literally can't eat fast enough. They swallow food hastily, like they haven't eaten in weeks. But then, fast forward to dinner, and we see a massive aversion, a total intolerance to wine. For this specific profile, wine is basically like poison. Even a single sip immediately aggravates all of their complaints. The headaches spike, the exhaustion deepens, and that nervous twitching we talked about, it goes straight into overdrive. And then we have this highly specific, incredibly counterintuitive fever quirk. So usually when someone has a fever and they start sweating, what do? They want to bundle up because they feel chilled. Well, not the Zincum patient. During the sweating stage, they will violently throw the blankets away. They absolutely cannot bear any covering whatsoever while sweating. But here's the really fascinating part. The sweating itself actually brings them relief. It's just the physical covers themselves that they can't tolerate on their super sensitive, overstimulated skin.
Let's move on to part 4, suppression versus natural relief.
This brings us to the absolute core pathology of this entire remedy, which is the mechanics of suppression. The absolutely crucial point here is understanding what happens when the body is not allowed to naturally express itself. In the source text, we see that years prior, this student had foot sweat or maybe a skin rash that was forcefully stopped, or what they call suppressed. Now, when you halt a natural bodily function like that, the disease doesn't just pack up and go away. Instead, it is forced much deeper into the system. It creates this dangerous backlog that directly attacks the nervous system, leading to really severe troubles like convulsions, chorea, which is involuntary movement, and intense falling vertigo. We actually see the terrifying consequences of this suppression most clearly in children. The texts describe incipient brain diseases developing after a childhood skin eruption is suppressed, and the symptoms are alarming and very distinct. The child rolls their head from side to side. They constantly bore the back of their head deep down into the pillow. They cry out in their sleep, jerk awake in absolute fright, and gnash their teeth. It's a really vivid, deeply distressed picture of a nervous system crying out for help. And historically, this exact presentation was the direct call for Zincum Metallicum. This brilliantly illustrates the central conflict of the Zincum profile. Notice what destroys them: wine, suppressed eruptions, and covering up during a sweat. All of these things trap energy and toxins inside. But contrast that with what actually saves them: sweating, natural discharges, and for women, the onset of menses. When the menstrual flow appears, or really when any natural discharge occurs, almost all of their sufferings just vanish. The chest feels better, the mind finally clears. The text even notes a terrifying sensation where the heart feels like it's literally going to burst right through the chest wall, and even that is completely relieved the moment a natural discharge is finally released. All right, bringing it all together in Part 5, the Grand Keynote Blueprint. To lock this fascinating profile into your memory, the source material gives us a fantastic rapid-fire mnemonic blueprint. So get ready. We start with ZIN. Z is for zero nerve power, that profound brain fag and cerebral depression we talked about earlier. I is for incessant fidgety feet. Remember, they just have to keep moving them, no matter how exhausted they are. And N stands for nervous exhaustion and an overall defective, weakened vitality. Next up is CUM. C is for convulsions, specifically those stemming from suppressed eruptions or from fright. U is for unable to bear covering during sweat, that bizarre fever quirk where they throw the blankets off. And M reminds us that menses, and really natural discharges in general, act as a vital release valve and relieve all complaints. Moving right along to the second word, META. M is for memory weak, connecting right back to that intense mental dullness of our burnt-out student. E is for eruptions suppressed, which, as we saw, forces the trouble deep into the brain and the nerves. T is for the constant twitching, trembling, and jerking of muscles. And A is for anemia present, reminding us of our opening quote about blood and iron. Now for LLIC, and definitely pay attention to these bizarre specificities. The first L is for left-sided falling vertigo while walking. The second L is for that incredibly specific lunchtime ravenous hunger, hitting exactly between 11 a.m. and noon. I is for the absolute intolerance to wine and alcohol. And C is for a symptom that really shows how weak their vitality truly is. They can urinate only while sitting bent completely backward. I know, it's a surprisingly distinct and peculiar detail, but it really highlights the absolute physical exhaustion of the system. And we finish out the blueprint with UM. U stands for an urgent vitality that is simply too weak for normal bodily functions to occur properly. And the final M is for the frightening movements of the head in children, specifically rolling the head from side to side and boring it deep into the pillow. So, if we distill this entire massive character profile down to a single cheat sheet, here is your main takeaway. Zincum Metallicum is the exhausted nerve patient whose feet never ever stop moving, who becomes ravenously hungry at exactly noon, who absolutely cannot tolerate wine, and who miraculously feels better when natural discharges are finally released. It's a beautifully complex, highly specific picture of total human exhaustion. We've covered the brilliant, burnt-out student. We've seen the twitching muscles, the midday starvation, the severe dangers of suppressing the body's natural outlets, and how this incredible profile paints a picture of total nervous system depletion. It brings us right back to where we started, leaving us with a pretty profound question to consider as we wrap up today's explainer. If iron fuels your blood, what is fueling your nerves? I hope you found this visual journey. If this methodology sounds like the solution to your study struggles, remember to subscribe to their channel for more easy stories and memory tricks. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. Now go out there and start mastering the material one story at a time.